We continue to wait and see what the Suns are going to do with their front office shakeup and changes. Matt Ishbia told all of us change is coming across the board to the Phoenix Suns, and there's reporting out there from Dwayne Rankin of the Arizona Republic that there's an addition coming to the front office, and we were left wondering, would there be a subtraction or is it just an addition? And what does it mean for James Jones and his future? Remember, his contract expires at the end of June. So if he is going to remain on board in some capacity, right now he holds both the general manager title and the president of basketball operations title. So in a world where they hire Bob Myers, because that's been the rumor we've been discussing a bunch here over the last week or so on the show, if they hired Bob Myers, it would be as a president of basketball operations, the guy that oversees everything, is the final decision maker outside of Matt Ishbia on the basketball side of things. Well, in that scenario, James Jones would be somewhat relegated back to just being the general manager, maybe handling more of the day-to-day stuff. And in that world, he still needs a contract extension. In a world where somebody is brought on as an addition to this staff and it remains a collaborative process and James Jones doesn't necessarily lose any titles on his business card, but they add somebody else to the process. If James Jones is going to be the architect of this team in the summer, whether it is as one voice or the voice, whatever the case may be, it's going to come with a new contract. His expires at the end of June. So there has to be some type of finality to that situation. Well, perhaps we can read the tea leaves and read between the lines of what the Suns may be thinking, because there was a report over the weekend by Mark Stein, NBA insider. We've talked about some of Mark Stein's reporting when it came to the Bob Myers interest from the Suns. Mark Stein's done an excellent job covering the Kevin Durant trade rumors. He's been kind of at the forefront of some of the reporting here on the Suns and what their future may or may not look like. Well, he reported over the weekend that James Jones has been, quote, operating as the point guard for the Phoenix coaching search, end quote. So James Jones operating as the point guard for the Phoenix coaching search. Now remember, they're going to add somebody to their front office. Remember, we have said on this show, get the front office in order, and the reporting has backed this up, get the front office in order, and then conduct your coaching search. If James Jones is operating as the point guard for the coaching search, that sounds like a guy who's going to get a contract extension before the end of June. That a new contract is going to be slid across the table. I don't know if you do that anymore. Everything's kind of just e-signature at this point. You get an email and it says sign here, and you go in there and you type your name and it makes a signature for you and you just sign a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, but then you can't post a picture of them with the backdrop and the pen in their hands.
Well, they'll still sign something, but most of the time I think that's just like a phony piece of paper that doesn't actually have any real legal binding nature to it. It's just a piece of paper that they make it look like it's a contract and then they just sign it. Most things are done electronically these days, but either electronically or physically, a new contract slid across the table to James Jones. If he is right now perhaps James Jones is just operating business as usual. I'm the general manager. I'm the president of basketball ops. We need a head coach. Until I hear otherwise, until I hear that somebody new is involved in this process, I'm just going to do my job and I'm going to work on getting a new head coach for this basketball team. Perhaps that's what's going on. That leads me to a question of how's the communication in the building? It doesn't sound like everybody's on the same page. But either way, if Jones is going to be the lead guy for this head coach search, so far it looks like he is, does that sound like a guy whose contract is going to expire at the end of June and he is going to be working in another organization? That he is no longer going to be working for the Phoenix Suns organization? No, it does not. It sounds like a guy who very much is going to have a say, is very much going to have his fingerprints all over the new identity of this basketball team. Are we okay with that? Are we okay with James Jones continuing to have a say in the way this roster looks, in the way this next chapter of Suns basketball under Matt Ishbia looks? I know my answer. This concerns me. It concerns me because it brings up a fear that I had, that I shared when we saw the initial reporting of the Suns wanting to make an addition to their front office and not really giving any clarity to James Jones's future. I worry that we are barreling down toward a situation where you have too many cooks in the kitchen. You have too many voices. You have too many opinions. Everybody can't get on the same page, and they are unable to nail down and agree on one unified vision for what this future is going to look like. And producer Evan, in our morning meeting today, thought aloud, what if James Jones is going to work on this coaching search and then he's just going to leave at the end of June when his contract is up and there's not going to be a new contract extension? And I said to him, that would make me have zero faith, zero confidence. Right now I have 5% confidence, 10% confidence, maybe on a good day, of the direction this team is going in. And it'll grow when I see some of the decisions that they make. That decision to allow Jones to kind of linger around and then just can't come to terms with him. See, after Matt Ishbia had his end of year recap, he had his exit interview with the media, we wondered aloud, could we see a world where they bring somebody else in and then they can't see eye to eye, in air quotes, can't see eye to eye with James Jones, and he just leaves when his contract is up? And we thought that that could have been a possibility. But if James Jones is the point guard of the head coach search, again, it doesn't sound like a guy who they don't want around. It sounds like a guy they want to keep around. And so if we then end up in the place where he's gone and did have a say in this head coach search, that would be a very, very, very bad look. It would show to me that this team has no clue what they're doing. Now, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. I don't know if James Jones being the point guard of this head coach search just means he's putting together a list of people that they want to interview. I mean, this is interesting. Is it a shock to anybody else the way it is to me that we haven't heard a single name leak as to who the Suns might be interested in hiring? They fired Coach Bud the day the season was over, right? That Monday, he was gone. We haven't heard a peep. People have thrown out potential names. Chris Haynes threw out a bunch of names. But have you heard a single name be linked to this job at this point?
No.
Not at all. I think that's surprising that we are this far into the process and we haven't heard a single name leak. But I just want to get everybody mentally prepared. It doesn't look like to me that James Jones is going anywhere. It looks like James Jones is going to have a very serious say in the way this Suns team looks next season. And I know that there are probably some of you out there who want to give James the benefit of the doubt, want to look at the job that he did putting together the team that was 2 wins away from the NBA Finals. And sure, that's really the thing you'd have to lean on to make that case. I would point to the way this roster has looked over the last couple of years, the way they build out a bench, the way they identified Bradley Beal as a target to be the third piece. He was involved in these coaching searches. He was a part of the process that picked Frank Vogel. He was a part of the process, whatever you want to call that process was, to fire Vogel and then to hire Coach Bud. He was a part of all of that. All of that is on his resume. And you can't cherry pick and say, oh, well, this one is a move that Matt Ishbia did, or this one we're going to give credit to James Jones for. You can't do that. You have to take it all in totality. And I don't love the resume. I think I'm ready for a fresh vision. I think I'm ready for a new, different voice to have a seat at the table and to be the one making suggestions and bringing a new vision to light. It just doesn't seem like that's the direction that this team is interested in going in.
Now, I still can't get over that if it is James Jones making this hire, they're going to add to the front office after making the coaching hire. That in and of itself feels backwards.
Well, they still could, because again, we haven't heard any names. We haven't heard, oh, they've interviewed this guy, they've interviewed that guy. We haven't heard any of that. We could still live in a world where in the next week or two, they hire somebody to add to their front office, and then it is full steam ahead, and then we start hearing about they're interviewing this assistant coach, or they're hiring this, they're interviewing this ex-player. I can see a world where that is the scenario that plays out. But the longer this goes without them adding, at some point they're going to want to start interviewing people, no? And at some point,
you have to assume
they're going to want to get somebody on board so they can start. I don't want to say hiring a coach is the easy part, but they've got some major roster decisions to make. They have to try to negotiate and land the plane on a Kevin Durant trade. I mean, that is a heavy ask. That is a heavy lift for this team. And trust me, it's gotten a little bit more difficult. We'll talk about this a little bit later on in the show, but it feels like speculation is starting to ramp up about a certain player that's going to make the Suns' pursuits of a Kevin Durant trade maybe a little bit more difficult this summer. And so you kind of want to get the front office stuff settled quickly. You kind of want to get the coaching stuff settled quickly so that the makeover of this roster, a Kevin Durant trade, if there's going to be one, you can start the hard work that it is going to take to land that plane. Yet here we are discussing the guy whose contract. See, I would feel okay about James Jones being the point guard of this head coach search if we had news that he signed a new deal. I may not agree with him getting a new deal. I maybe would disagree with doubling down on James Jones, and we can have that debate. But you got a guy operating on an expiring deal, overseeing this head coach search. It just feels backwards to me.
But you would have an answer at least.
You would have an answer, and I could at least get on board with, okay, they want to stick by James. They're at least trying to do this in the right way. And that doesn't appear to be the case right now.